Good morning, everybody. Schuyler Callihan here with another episode of Between the Ears, and the college football transfer portal is now closed. We can all breathe a sigh of relief. Well, maybe. For the most part, it seems like we already have a pretty good idea as to what West Virginia Mountaineers are no longer with the program, and we can kind of move forward now to actually focusing on the guys that West Virginia recruit in the transfer portal. So just because the transfer portal is closed, I know this is kind of confusing to a lot of folks, doesn't mean that you can't recruit. As long as you are in the portal before May 1, which is today, you can contact and have contact with college coaches around the country. So now teams and players will be able to start their recruiting process and set up visits and all that kind of good stuff. So what we're going to look at today is what West Virginia lost in the portal. They lost, by my count, I believe 21 scholarship players, or 20 or 21, somewhere in that ballpark, and which guys they're really going to miss, and kind of breaking down sort of the realistic part of this, and that, well, there's really not much that they've really truly lost in the portal. So before we do that, make sure you hit that subscribe button here on our YouTube channel at Mountaineers Now. Give us a thumbs up as well. And then if you have some time, go over to X and follow us there at that same exact handle. So running through the list here. Now, this is going to take me just a second, so bear with me here. And we'll throw this up here on the screen so you don't have to stare at my ugly mug while I read through this. So the guys that have left West Virginia now in the transfer portal, some of these, as you can see, have already exited the portal and found a new home. But Sean Boyle, the quarterback, he was probably one of the most recent entrants outside of Montre Miller. Justin Johnson still looking for a home, the running back. Wide receivers, you got Jeremiah Aaron, Cortez Braham, E.J. Horton, Jashawn Polk. Offensive lineman, Charlie Katarincic. At edge, you have Braden Dudley, Jared Bartlett, James Hurd. Defensive line, Tommy Wader-Ajayi, Mike Lockhart. Linebacker, Tyreek Austin Cave and Lance Dixon. Cornerback, Montre Miller, Andrew Wilson-Lamp, Christian Stokes. Safety, Keyshawn Cobb, Hershey McLaurin, Davis Mallinger, and then also Danny King we're going to throw on there too, who is committed to play at Southern Utah. So quite the list. And what's so funny about this is I think we just become so accustomed to this new age of college athletics to it, where if you have 20 some kids transfer in one off season, it's not the holy crap. And I felt like for the last 2 or 3 years, I had to like remind folks like, hey, just because there's 20 guys in the portal doesn't mean West Virginia's working at a deficiency at this point. And this has kind of been the same type of list, maybe not as big of heavy hitters as there have been in years past, like the Tyke Smiths, the Dre Sean Millers, the Akeem Messidors, Daryl Porters, Caden Prathers, so on and so forth. You have a couple in there, but really for the most part, it's been the same as what it's been in most years, in that most of these guys weren't going to see the field, haven't seen the field, and just need to go somewhere else. You know, like Sean Boyle, for example. I think he could be a guy that could have stuck around, been the backup in future years, but he understands that in all reality, this is going to be Nico Marchiol's team after this season once Garrett Green graduates. There's no point for him to stick around and, waste time here where he can go and start somewhere else, and I don't know, just throwing something out there. Maybe he goes back home and plays at the University of Charlotte, where he's from. Makes a lot of sense. Um, Guys like Jeremiah Aaron, Cortez Braham, they left there in the middle of the season. EJ Horton, who I said, well, this was a big spring for him. Braden Dudley. Those are two guys I mentioned that they need to have a spring that either puts them in a position to play this year at West Virginia, or put enough on tape to where they can get some interest in the portal, because what they had done to this point hadn't really impressed. You could even throw Jarrell Williams in that mix, who appears to be staying. I'm not saying that he hasn't put together impressive tape. It's just we haven't heard much of him. He hasn't gotten onto the field that much. And this was a big spring for him too. So And keep in mind, as I record this, there could still be names that trickle in. They already have to be in the portal by yesterday. By midnight last night, they had to have been in the portal. However, there might be some names that don't leak out in terms of those who have access to the portal um, that may not be reporting that just yet. I haven't heard back from my portal guy about anything. So doesn't mean that there may not be one or two more that come along the way. But for the most part, this seems to be the list. So the other guys defensively, I think really the only big pieces, Jared Bartlett, James Hurd, Tommy Waderjaye, Mike Lockhart. And I think, you kind of feel okay about those guys. I think you'd like to have Michael Lockhart, but you're okay with Hammond Russell and Fatorma Mulba and whoever they add through the portal. They were going to be really fine because they had Corey McIntyre Jr., but now he's hurt. You're going to have to bring somebody else into the mix. But I think you're okay there. You can make up his loss. Edge is the one where I have the most question. Jared Bartlett was kind of a tough one, but really to me it was James Hurd. That one I don't understand. I don't know why or what happened there that he left to go to Syracuse, but you would have liked to be able to keep him. And obviously, Tommy Waderjai, I mean, that's kid comes in, instant impact year one. You feel like he's somebody you can build this defense around for years to come. And Florida State comes and gets him. So that's a tough one. But outside of those kind of handful of guys, you feel pretty confident about where your roster stands heading into now the month of May and where you can be in a position to add and not lose people. We're not talking about a Jaheim White. We're not talking about Rodney Gallagher. We're not talking about Nico Marchiol. We're not talking about Aubrey Burks or Ben Cotter or Josiah Trotter, Sean Martin. That's the positives. Anytime you can go into this new part of the offseason, because this is all new, having the portal timeline the way it is, entering the month of May with the bulk of your key contributors still a part of this thing, you're feeling really good. And this is kind of that moment where Neil Brown's going, thank gosh, right? He's been kind of holding his breath really since the end of the season when they left Baylor. I mean, because there was that weird portal window between the end of the season and the bowl game. You were losing some guys there. You were losing guys after the season, after the bowl game. And you're going to lose some guys in the spring window. This is the first time he can really just kind of, like I said, just go, thank goodness, right? So we've made it to this point. And once you get this deep into it, you feel pretty good because, I mean, guys aren't going to be leaving at this point. I mean, it's not to say it won't happen when the fall whips around, but I don't even know. These transfer portal windows, they're constantly getting shifted and moved around. So are we going to have a different timetable for the 24-25 kind of calendar year? And does that go into effect immediately? Do we have a window right before fall camp? Like this could all change at any given point in time. So as of right now, I think we can take a step back and say we feel pretty good about where things stand. I also kind of want to touch on some of the areas where I think West Virginia could add in the portal. I talked about it in my maybe one of the episodes earlier in the week. Not really sure. It's been a crazy week already. And then I also did an article for the top portal needs. If you haven't read that, go check that out. Or if not, you can just hear me spiel it all out right here. The one spot that I don't think anyone's talking about, and rightfully so, is quarterback. You got to have a third quarterback in the mix. Khalil Wilkins, incoming freshman, don't think you're going to be able to expect much out of him in year one, especially because he's coming in the summer. He's not an early enrollee. So you have to think that he's probably not going to be able to be that number 3 guy. It might be one of the walk-ons that you have. It might be somebody else in the portal. I suggested that they go after, somebody that's It's got to be one of the two. It's either you're going after somebody that you're very transparent with, to not only Nico and Garrett, but also the potential transfer, and say, hey, we're just trying to fill a number three spot. And if you're happy to come here and be a backup, just be still happy to play in college football, and you want to be a part of a team that's contending for a Big 12 title, come on aboard. And if a couple injuries happen or if some things, hit the fan, maybe you get your way onto the field, but more than likely you're just coming in here to be a backup. That's option one. The other option is you go and get a guy that, say, has 2 or 3 years of eligibility left and can at least compete to be the starter in 25. Because as of right now, it's Nico's job to lose. And I'm not saying that you can't go into 25 and having it be clear cut, clear cut Nico's job and Khalil Wilkins being your solid number two. But if you can infuse some competition, even if it's just for a year, even if it's just for 24, you're making that room better. And by the time spring of 25 rolls around, you have an idea of what that transfer looks like, what Nico looks like, what Khalil Wilkins looks like. And you're probably going to lose one of the three. And even if it is the kid that you bring in for 1 year, so be it. You at least infuse competition into that room. I don't know that they want to waste not waste, but I don't know that they want to utilize a scholarship spot on the quarterback position. So that's why it's way, 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 way down on the priority list. They still need to get a big body receiver. They need that length. They have this speed. They have, the Ronnie Gallagher's, Traylon Ray's, Preston Fox's. You can throw Jarrell Williams in there, and Jaden Bray, Grayson Malasevich. They've got guys at receiver. Hudson Clement. There's no question about it. But they're all very similar. Traylon Ray's kind of the one that sticks out a little bit as being different, but you need that big, physical, long guy that can really stretch the field vertically. They don't have that. They've always had that in this offense for the most part. They've had George Campbell, Bryce Ford Wheaton, Devin Carter. They don't have that in this offense. That's not to say that they can't be efficient without it, but if you can add that extra element, that really will help out this offense. And it's really going to help out those young guys that are still trying to make that next step in their development. You're not relying so much on those kids. I think another pass catching tight end would be key. Cole Taylor, he's didn't really do much in the offseason because of the injury, but he's your number one, without a doubt. And I'm not saying you need somebody to come in and, have that type of production, but you need a second tight end that you can rely to throw the ball to. Because if you take Cole Taylor off the field, you insert Traylon Davis or you insert Will Dixon, defenses are going to have a pretty good idea as to what you're going to do just based off the personnel. If you have two tight ends out there and one of them's Cole Taylor and say another tight end that is pretty handsy as well, now you got two tight end options on just one play. If you remove Cole Taylor and you bring in, say, that transfer that has good hands, well, then it's still kind of a mystery as to what you're doing. If you just bring in Traylon Davis for Cole Taylor, you look at the personnel and think, okay, Cole Taylor's not on the field, Traylon Davis is. And this is not a slight to Traylon. He's just a physical blocking first type of guy who has improved with his hands. You know what West Virginia's probably going to do. So I think you need to add that extra element, get some more depth in that room, especially too, because if Cole Taylor goes down, you miss that open seam, and all of a sudden you're going to have to rely on your perimeter guys. So they need to add that to that position. As I mentioned earlier, when you lose Jared Bartlett, you lose James Hurd. I don't really know if losing Braden Dudley hurts all that much or impacts this team that much, but you need to add, I think, another edge rusher. Tyron Bradley's there. Obi Onwuka, the true freshman, is there. Ty French is going to get some reps there. They got some other guys taking reps at that spot. But I think if they could add another veteran to that position, they'll feel much better going into the fall. And lastly, I would probably say the only other spot that I would look at would be the Spears / safety position. The reason I throw the slash in there is because there's multiple ways that they could look at this. I don't know how West Virginia views their roster at this point. Do they feel comfortable with Raleigh Collins and Zay Jennings at Spear? If so, then I think you add somebody that can play both the cat and the free safety. If they don't feel good, or they feel like, we feel comfortable, but we probably wouldn't hurt to throw another guy in there at Spear, then you go and get the Spear. So I don't think you need both. I think you need one or the other. But that's kind of my feelings on in terms of the team's needs. And again, like I said, I think I mentioned it, but if not, I'm throwing this in there too. Defensive line. You got to get another defensive lineman, another big body, potentially somebody that can play both inside and out, to kind of make up for some of the depth that they've lost in the portal. But overall, I know it's a mouthful, but West Virginia's roster is in pretty damn good shape right now. And throughout the course of the summer, they're going to add to that with the high school kids that they've already signed, some more portal guys. So this is a good spot that they're in. Getting to this May 1 marker, it was huge for this coaching staff. And to be able to have essentially their entire key parts of the roster still in place means that they're going to be in position to make a run at the Big 12. So that's going to do it for me here today on Between Ears. I'm Schuyler Callihan. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. Please, please, please do that. Helps us so greatly. And then also give us a like there as well at Mountaineers Now. Follow us at the same handle on X. And we'll be back here tomorrow morning for another episode of Between Ears.